Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSPs. This is a US election daily update where I am going to give you the latest and my commentary on the Harris-Trump showdown. I'm going to start actually with foreign policy and national security. This is something that I concern myself with a lot on my normal videos, my Ukraine war videos and geopolitics videos concerning international events. Trump splits with the GOP lawmakers on national security, raising alarms. So let's do a little bit of a rewind. We had, for those who don't follow my Ukraine war stuff, we had a 7-month time period from the back end of last year through to middle of this year where the Congress were at an impasse. Right, Congress was not passing an appropriations bill that would provide aid to actually Taiwan, Israel and Ukraine. And that was because Donald Trump had basically said, don't do this. We don't want that to go through. Initially, it was to do with being joined to immigration, and he didn't want to solve immigration reform. So he didn't want to solve the problem at the border, didn't want that bill going through, that bipartisan bill that would have helped solve problems at the border, because he wanted that to continue being a problem so he could campaign on it. You solve a problem, you don't have anything to campaign on. And he wants to hold that over the Democrats so that he says, if you vote for us, we'll solve the border. But that was kind of connected initially to the aid to Ukraine. Then it wasn't, and then it was just being held up purposefully. But the reality was that most good old-fashioned Republican lawmakers who weren't of the MAGA fringe actually wanted that to go through. This fits in line with traditional Republican values with regard to foreign policy and international affairs. This was an opportunity to support a country who's striving for democracy in light of being invaded by Russia, the Russian Federation, old school nemesis for the US. Think back to Reagan. So actually, when it did eventually get allowed to be put to Congress, they passed it with about 3/4 of the Congress bipartisan agreement. This was absolutely huge. I mean, it was a tremendous bipartisan agreement. And that shows that you have beliefs inside Congress that don't align with Trumpian beliefs or those around Trump, whether they be lawmakers like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, so on and so forth, or thinkers around Trump like the Heritage Foundation and Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon, so on and so forth. So there's this a bit of a divide here, and the Hill article here talks to this. So national security minded Republican lawmakers are alarmed by what they see as a growing split between themselves and former President Trump on key issues, including the war in Ukraine, preserving the NATO alliance, and protecting Taiwan from Chinese aggression. So what you've seen recently is Trump saying, right, actually, we want to pull out of NATO and try and put these obstacles in place for continued NATO existence, really. Okay, we want it 2%. The 2014 agreement was 2% of GDP spent on defense. Trump saying not enough people were doing that. And that was true. Right? Trump was right back in, whenever he was saying it, 2017. Then you had the war in Ukraine. It wasn't Trump's words. It was mainly the war in Ukraine that upped people's expenditure. So now you've got something like 23 of the 31 nations achieving 2% GDP expenditure on defense. And now he's saying, actually, you want 3%. Now, actually, he's not majorly wrong there either. So we're at a time of, I think, national security crisis, international security crisis. I think there should be that kind of expenditure. But what he's doing, that he's not really bothered about national security and global stability. He wants people to not be able to fulfill the criteria because the US already spends 3%. They always, the US spends an inordinate amount. They spend more than the next 12 countries put together on defense, right? So US is just used to, it's part of their economic strategy to spend that much on defense. So it's easy for them to say, oh, right, everyone has to spend over 3% now. It was easy for Trump to say that because the US already does, and Poland are the only other ones I think that are over 3%. Some of the Baltic nations are approaching then, and then looking to overtake the US. But nonetheless, that's easy for Trump to say. And, oh, look, you guys have failed to reach their 3%. So now we're going to start pulling out of NATO. It might not be a formal pulling out of NATO because actually it was Marco Rubio, I think, helped bring something to the Senate to stop a president unilaterally doing that. It was interesting in itself. But it's more likely going to be something like the US not fulfilling their obligations to NATO and just sort of pulling out an all but name type thing. And yeah, so I think this is a case of moving the goalposts. Anyway, that is a difference between Trump and people, more traditional Reagan Republicans saying, actually, we want to support NATO alliance, obviously. And then you had Trump coming out and saying that actually Taiwan make all these microchips and we should be making them. In other words, here's an excuse not to help Taiwan, which would be aiding Russia over Ukraine and aiding China over Taiwan. Quite incredible. But there you go. Trump's actions over the past 3 weeks have stirred confusion and concern among Republican senators who voted earlier this year to approve tens of billions of dollars to contain Russia's invasion in Ukraine and to deter China from attacking Taiwan, an important US ally and trading partner. Defense-minded GOP senators viewed Trump's invitation to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who is very much a pro-Russian politician, to visit him in his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida after the NATO summit in Washington as a worrisome development. True, given Orban's close ties to President Putin and his efforts to undermine NATO support for defense of Ukraine. GOP senators who support US involvement in the war in Ukraine were dismayed when Trump selected Senator J.D. Vance, who led the opposition to the Ukraine assistance package, as a running mate. And Senate Republicans are feeling uneasy about Trump's assertion that Taiwan should pay more for its defense and refusal to commit to defending the island. Truth is that actually Taiwan's defense is more so than Ukraine bought by the Taiwanese. They buy a lot of stuff from the US. One Republican senator who requested anonymity said it's a big question whether Trump will support the war in Ukraine or would come to Taiwan's defense if attacked by China. I don't think he desires to be in a conflict or to pay for conflicts around the world, the senator observed. There's no question where J.D. Vance is, the lawmaker said of Trump's selection of the Ohio senator as a running mate. The senator called Trump's meeting with Orban concerning. I can tell you why he's doing it, the lawmaker remarked. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell argued earlier this year that the Republican Party has turned the corner on the isolationist movement within its ranks when a majority of GOP senators voted for those aid packages. Now, you still have this schism between actually J.D. Vance and Trumpian isolationism and those of kind of the Reagan era Republicans who think we should be spreading our influence around the world. So just an interesting article that goes actually on and on, as connecting it to Carlson and the influence that people like Tucker Carlson have in steering the narrative for Trump and the Republicans. Here we go. Here's McConnell also spoke out about the need to stand with Taiwan and other Far East allies when asked about Trump's reluctance to commit to defending the island nation, which is a major source of semiconductors for US industry. Quote, we don't know yet who's going to be the new administration, but it's pretty clear that our allies in Asia, and now you can add the Philippines to the group, are all concerned about Chinese aggression. They are watching what happens in Russia and to Russia in Ukraine carefully. This is the clearest example of the democratic world needing to stand up to these authoritarians, he said. Reagan had it right. There's one thing that works. Peace you get through strength, not peace through appeasement, right? Which is at the moment where this kind of Trumpian republicanism, it seems to be going. So there are those, again, I advise you go and read this article in Hill. There are those in Congress, Republicans, who are worried about the direction of travel. It's why you have people like Adam Kinzinger. Not only was he particularly worried about the January the 6th insurrection, and he was on the committee with Liz Cheney looking into that as Republicans, and now they've been disowned by the Republicans, but they were the ones who were following, Oath and Honor, as Cheney's book is titled, and it's an excellent book. I advise you go and read it. And I'm no fan of Liz Cheney's politics generally, but that's a superb book. So her and Kinzinger have been ostracized from the Republicans, but they are the ones that are also particularly concerned about the direction of travel with regard to international policy. Adam Kinzinger, a veteran, is a super, super strong supporter of Ukraine. It's interesting that moving away from international diplomacy, we have the topic of immigration, and this is the topic that the Republicans are going to be most emphasizing. So, unlawful crossings by migrants along the US southern border has dropped for the fifth consecutive month in July, plunging to the lowest level since the autumn of 2020. US Border Patrol agents made roughly 55,000 migrant apprehensions between official points of entry along the US-Mexico border in July, the lowest number since September 2020, when the agency reported nearly 55,000 apprehensions. 56,000. Yeah, okay. So, there are some criticisms of the way that they get these stats that I've seen. Elon Musk was whinging about it the other day, as you can imagine. And I haven't looked into it, so it may be that they have changed the way they collect data. But assuming that it's all bona fide, this is exactly what the Democrats really want. This is good data, as is economic data that keeps coming in that shows that the US economy is one of the best performing economies in the world. When you're coming up to election, especially if you're an incumbent government with a really good economy and you've got migrant crossings dropping and you've got crime dropping, the statistics are really, really good for the Democrats. So this is something that the Republicans will have to try and spin in a way that benefits their narrative. Trump campaign, I think this was pretty impressive. Trump campaign raised $138.7 million in the month of July. That was the month of the convention and the assassination attempt. Vice President Harris raised the same amount in 72 hours. But forgetting what the Democrats did, actually, normally that would be a pretty impressive amount. So both sides raising a lot, but obviously the Democrats have got this momentum now that has meant that they have not only raised an absolute ton of money, but they're also getting those registrations. So Harris's campaign, July was the best grassroots fundraising month in presidential history. So some of the data points here are really, really worth focusing on. July was the best grassroots fundraising month in presidential history. Team Harris raised more across grassroots channels in the 4 days following Biden's endorsement for Vice President Harris than Trump's big donor-reliant operation raised in the entire month. More than 3 million donors made over 4.2 million contributions, with more than 2 million donors making their first donation this cycle. This month, 94% of all donations, this is the one that is amazing, 94% of all donations this month were under $200. Teachers and nurses continue to be among the most common donor occupations. Campaign also announced several other achievements. So compared to June, they saw more than 10 times the number of Gen Z donors and more than 8 times the number of millennial donors. 60% of all donors in July were women. Coalition groups that organized calls since the launch were Black Women for Harris, Latinos for Harris, White Dudes for Harris. And they raised more than $20 million for Team Harris. So all these different demographics coming together. They're also getting registrations for voting. We're going to go back to that subject in a minute because there's some controversy that has happened. But yeah, really good news for Harris, although, the Trump campaign had done a fairly good job of fundraising themselves, right? Okay, so the other thing, there was something to do with, it was the one above Mitch McConnell. No, I think it might have been this. Oh, yeah, this was it. It was Mitch McConnell. So Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, in an interview with Punchbowl News, was asked about J.D. Vance, right? And obviously everyone's really gunning for Republicans to slag off J.D. Vance because he's had a bit of a nightmare start. With regard to Senator Vance, said Mitch McConnell, we have a different point of view. That is incredible. Damned by not even faint praise, damned by obfuscation there. That is J.D. Vance basically getting the opposite of an endorsement from Mitch McConnell. It's not my job to tell the president who he ought to run. With regard to Senator Vance, we have a different point of view. So that, I think, is Mitch McConnell saying, I don't think much of J.D. Vance. Yes. Without directly criticising Donald Trump or Vance, McConnell said that the foreign policy doctrine, so we've just been talking about that, Vance and others in his party believe in, is nonsense, adding, even the slogans are what they were in the 1930s, America First. So remember, I've talked an awful lot about the America First movement, Charles Lindbergh, that was very much about not supporting Europe in the Second World War, and it was only when Pearl Harbor happened that America had no real choice but to go to war. But there was this big movement to isolate from Europe, from the problems around the world, and I wonder where the US would be now if that had happened. But yeah, so this is fascinating that Mitch McConnell would be so overtly criticizing that isolationist approach from campaign Trump, really. Okay. So we are moving on to the rest is politics US. So this is a great podcast. I love listening to Katty Kay and Anthony Scaramucci together. That is a good listen. Right. They are going to talk about the National Association of Black Journalists conference where Trump turned up and had that absolute nightmare where he was interviewed by 3 black journalists and it did not go well. It was a car crash interview, effectively. But and I know it's a couple of days ago now, and we talked about it a lot yesterday, but there's still this fallout taking place. I think there are some interesting observations here from Scaramucci, who obviously has his connections still, as he served under Trump for 11 days, actually, before Trump got rid of him. But he is now like very much not a fan of Trump. But he knows Trump and he knows these connections as well. So this is his appraisal of the fallout or of that Trump was definitely angry after that appearance.
Well, let me just start out for saying for sure it was not a win for him. He lost something there, and he has very good to great, let's call it great political instincts. And he was extremely angry after that. And the reason I know that is the way the Pennsylvania event started. He went back to Pennsylvania, as you know. David McCormick, who's a friend of mine, and I believe you know David McCormick and Dina Powell. David is running for the Senate, and he was so flustered, and he had teleprompters in front of him. He said, "You're a great, strong, great, courageous leader who's running for governor. Do you want to come up on the stage?" But David's running for the Senate. And he made 5 or 6 major gaffes like that. And they are not typical Trump gaffes where he'll mispronounce a word because he's not a great reader. They were just gaffes based on, because I've seen him. Remember, I did 71 campaign stops with him. When he loses his temper, and I guarantee you on that flight to Pennsylvania, he was off the hook, upset about how that went down for him. And
because it didn't go the way he expected.
It did not go the way he expected. What he wanted to do was he wanted to blow up.
So that was interesting. Just a bit of an analysis there on how it didn't go well for him and he was super angry. And you could see that because he went and gave this appearance in Pennsylvania and he made all these gaffes that he wouldn't normally make.
She went to a historically black college in
So now we're talking, sorry, I just couldn't remember what the next part was. So the next part is about him, and I discussed this yesterday, the idea that Trump, and he's gotten in a lot of trouble over this, saying that, you know, now she's black, but, you know, before she was all about being Indian and she's only just sort of become black. What's going on there? And loads of people going to town on this. I summarised, obviously, what he said, but go and listen to it. It was an absolute shocker. She's biracial, right? So in the same way that there are so many people around the States, whether you've got a black mum and a white dad or whatever your ethnic situation is, there are tens of millions of people who are biracial in the US. And this would be an absolute, nuclear warning for those voters. Like if you've got Trump saying something like he said, just absolute shocker. Like, you know, you can only be one or the other. Like, I saw another analysis saying like she can only be like black and a woman, right? She's half woman, half black. She can't be black, Indian, and a woman. Like, and it's just loads of people going to town on this. And it's, as I said last night, it's also not correct because she has been big on celebrating her black heritage all throughout her life. When Trump said, she was like all about being an Indian previously, he's only just recently decided she's kind of black or something. You know, that kind of implication is it's just absolutely incorrect.
Today.
So she went to a historically black college and university, Howard, right? She has identified her whole life as African American and South Asian. Her mother was of Indian origin. First of all, Caddy, in 2024, how on God's earth could this possibly matter? Okay, but it does matter to a group of people that Trump is trying to galvanize. So he was out there. He has shed La Savita and he has shed Wiles for the moment. Why has he done that?
Okay, to give you the context of who these people are he's talking about and where this is going. I talked to you yesterday about how Trump has now shelved Project 2025, at least officially. Unofficially, it's always going to be what they are going to implement if Trump gets into the president's position. So all of the claims about, we're not having anything to do with Project 2025 should be taken with a massive pinch of salt. But you had, is it Susan Wiles and Lasavita, these two people who are of the more old school Republican persuasion, who are managing his campaign, saying, we need to drop Project 2025. Only 10% of people like it. It's deeply unpopular. Is not going to win votes. And people are hauling us over the hot coals over Project 2025. So Trump went along with this and he said, I don't know anything about Project 2025, even though all his own people wrote it. JD Vance has just written a foreword for a book on it, and the connections are rife, okay? So he clearly knew about Project 2025, but they've recognised that it's not polling well, and so they've ditched Project 2025. But this caused a massive backlash from the MAGA people who really want Project 2025. But as I've told you before, you've got this box with a ceiling where you're going to get maximum in the 40s percentage vote for this kind of thinking. And if you want to persuade people outside of that box to win the election, you will not win the election unless you persuade some of these independents, people in the middle, people from all these other demographics, that you're the person for them. And you have to move away from things like Project 2025 in order to do that. You can't win on campaigning on proper MAGA stuff. The MAGA people love you, and they love you in a cultish way, Trump, and they will follow you to the ends of the earth, right? But it's not for everyone. So if you keep appealing to those people and those people alone, you will not win the election. So Lasavita and Wiles convinced him to do that, but there's been this kickback from the MAGA types such that it looks like Wiles and Lasavita have been sidelined at the moment, which is Trump re-engaging with that MAGA crowd, because that's his comfort zone, right? Those are all the people that shout for him at those rallies. But he still doesn't realise that he's not going to win the election by appealing to those people.
Those are the two people running his campaign who actually up until now have done a pretty good job of keeping
Wiles and Lasavita
on the straight and narrow.
By the way, I think they've done an amazing job. I've said that. I got Harris people mad at me for saying that. They're extremely disciplined.
But they've done an amazing job while he was ahead in the polls. When he's behind in the polls, it's a different story.
But let me tell you, and again, I'm sorry I'm hogging this, but because I got this information from people that know what's going on, and I want to share it with everybody. So here's what happened, okay? They're doing great. Project 2025 is a thorn in their side. It's not polling well. People think it's a fascist, racist movement. And this is classic Trump. He put 85 people, I have the list in front of me, 85 people into Project 225. They're all his people. He's met with them many times. The person that wrote the foreword to the book, Project 2025, is a gentleman by the name of J.D. Vance. Anybody know who that is? And so now he's trying to disavow it. This is what he does. When he fired me, he said he barely knew me. Okay, if you look at the tweets when he started attacking me, he said that he barely knew who I was, and I claim to know who he is. That's his MO. He goes to that MO. You could play golf with him, Caddy K, for 40 years. You could be at the ninth hole at the halfway house, drop dead of a heart attack. He'll turn around and say, who the hell was that? And who could play the last half of this round with me? That is Donald Trump, the most transactional person you ever meet. So he's now run over those 85 people. And he's got guys like Mike Cernovich who are with him saying, this is mutiny. This is blasphemy. You've blown out all of the people that have been with you, all your loyalists, and you're listening to La Savita and you're listening to Susie Wiles, who are Bush people.
And the point is, if you want to win the election, you need to listen to those two Bush people. And if you want to lose the election, you want to listen to all of those MAGA people. But the MAGA people are the ones that give him that obsequious kind of idol worship. and they're his kind of safety. They're his safe space, right? And he's going to go back to them, but they won't win in that election.
Who are DeSantis people? They're from the original group of GOP, and you're leaving the people behind. So now he shed those guys for a moment, and he went back to the maggots. Make America great again. I add the T because it sounds like maggots, like things that eat your flesh, right? And the maggots are telling him, blow the racial dog whistle as hard as possible. Let's get every racist in the country. You identify with that when you want to, right? And as I said on Twitter, he's not a white racist cracker because he's orange. He's more like a Ritz racist cracker, and that's him. Okay, so he's out there blowing the dog whistle, and it's not working, Caddy. And now he's got a tug of war between the maggots that are like, you blew up 2,225. Why did you do that to all of us? We're so loyal to you. And La Savita and Wiles are saying, do you want to win this goddamn thing or not? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think
that's a really good synopsis there. And what I said yesterday, it's really, really interesting that there's some agreement there from these guys. Now, this next bit, we're going to go back to the NABJ conference where you got these three black journalists interviewing him. And one of them is from Fox News. And it's really interesting to get what Anthony Scaramucci's take is from her, from listening to her live and then replaying that, and then going to what she later said on Fox News. Fascinating.
And I don't think it has the traction that it had in 2016.
There's another Harris here. And I don't know if you picked it up, but I watched the tape 4 times. The woman's name is Harris Faulkner. And I think you know Harris, and I know Harris very well. I've been on the air with her at Fox. She's an amazingly gifted African-American female journalist. She was the last woman on the panel. She was to the far right of the president. And by the way, she's a fan of the president's, and she works at Fox News. She gasped, Caddy K, when he called Rachel Scott a nasty, nasty woman in that bullying way that he's done successfully for 8 years. She gasped.
So context there, it's the first the first journalist who asked the question, that very first question, that was quite a challenging one for him. He called her, called the question nasty, and using the term nasty, which is something he likes to do. And Harris Faulkner gasped audibly.
Okay, I don't remember exactly what she said.
She even said something like, "You're serious?
Seriously? Oh God, are you serious?" Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Okay.
This is unbelievable.
That's when he deflated. That's when the anger started, because he's not a dummy. When he lost Harris Faulkner, who's an African-American that he sees as part of his African-American base, when he lost her on the stage, that's when he started losing his way in the conversation.
So that's really interesting. But what's then fascinating is how Harris Faulkner gathers her senses, reacts, because the reality is I would like to know what people like Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, Harris Faulkner here, Jesse Walters, all of the 5, apart from Jessica Tarlov on Fox, what they really think about Donald Trump, really. But what do they say to their partners at the end of the day over a glass of wine? It's like, oh God, I had to spend a whole day standing up for Donald Trump again. Or do they genuinely like him? So here, and not just like him, but agree with him, right? So here you have a journalist who is audibly gasping, saying, reacting to what Donald Trump has said in a very negative way. And then she's able to gather her senses, and then is probably given, not the marching orders, but, given a what for, maybe, from Trump's team, and goes on to Fox News and dutifully toes the party line.
Deserves. It wasn't just Hannity, and we'll get back to Hannity. It was also Harris Faulkner. So Harris Faulkner was one of the journalists.
I'm due to interview Josiah here from Pondering Politics at some point. We are in contact, but don't know when that's going to be.
Journalists attending the National Association of Black Journalists, and she was one of the ones on stage asking Trump questions. She did not like how Trump was treated, and I'm going to play some clips in which she makes that point and says, really, people should respect Trump more, and these people were too disrespectful. They didn't observe the niceties. Why didn't they say thank you, Mr. President? Good to see you, Mr. President. You were just the victim of an assassination attempt recently, Mr. President. So we should go soft on you. And actually, the crowd loved Trump. I mean, for the most part, just full cope and spin mode from Harris Faulkner.
Walks out on stage and not a greeting to acknowledge it's been 18 days at that point since you survived an assassination attempt. We're going to ask you tough questions, but Mr. President, welcome, and we're glad you're still here. Yeah. I mean, it didn't take much to show humanity, and in that moment, I was so disappointed that didn't happen. I couldn't control it, but
that's not what her reaction showed. She reacted to his answer, not to that question. So this is her effectively lying or just spinning everything to be totally pro-Trump.
Got things off to an emotional start. And you and I both know that once that happens and you're interviewing someone, there is an agenda. And I'm glad you guys played a clip of that, because America and the journalists in the room, who, by the way, sat and listened, some were laughing along with the president, little jokes and quips he was making. There were some critical in the audience, too. But it was expressed respectfully. There was a way to have taken some of the energy out of that moment, though, with that reporter. Walks out.
Again, I'm just imagining, folks.
So, and he goes on to play more of her just being incredibly pro-Trump and right in Trump's pocket, really. And I just think that's terribly sad. But these are partisan days we live in, and I imagine on MSNBC you'd probably get similar for like someone's trying to support Joe Biden. Although, to be honest, like with Joe Biden's advancing age, MSNBC were trying to toe the pipeline for the Democrats, but there were people who were deeply critical of Biden as well. So, it's not 100% behind as it was Biden then from, say, MSNBC. I think Fox is deeply supportive of any GOP candidate, and particularly Trump. Now, this is interesting. So he was complaining about coming late onto the stage, and was complaining about microphones not being ready or correct or something. The reality apparently was, and there was some issue, like he thought he was originally going to be recording it by Zoom, and then actually turned up there, and then there was, not going to be Kamala Harris, and it was just him, and he was kind of, I guess he felt like he's going into Lion's Den. But of course, A, he had agreed to this, and B, this is your opportunity, as I said yesterday, to persuade those people that you need over to your side. So it's now confirmed the NABJ and Donald Trump had a disagreement about fact-checking live. Trump refused to go on stage until they agreed to his demands. NABJ President Ken Lemon wrote an actual statement of why Trump wouldn't be appearing and was prepared to present it when Trump suddenly walked on the stage. So Trump stalled black journalist interview over fact-checking. Interesting. So, not a fan of being fact-checked. Now, he talked in that interview about black jobs, and he was asked what he meant by black jobs, and he was like, jobs for people. Like, what are you talking about? Some people are insinuating that he actually really means menial jobs, low-paid jobs. That's one of the accusations of Trump's kind of black jobs framing. But it's interesting. So these are all opportunities to get the public on your side. And when the public, especially kind of national heroes, are not on your side and are tweeting things or saying things in public that are against your position, if that interview has landed so badly that people say things like this, you're in trouble. So Simone Biles, who is like an insanely good athlete, a gymnast who's just won golds and I think is going for more, throws shade at Donald Trump after winning her second gold medal in Paris. I love my black job, with a black heart there, says Simone Biles, after, replying to her winning gold medals and being the GOAT, the greatest of all time. So, yeah, it's just, he will rue that interview with the NABJ. Now, I've talked to you about how I think this was a definite success for the Democrats or the ruling administration at the moment, that they have swapped these prisoners. I was listening to an analysis on this earlier today on Ukraine the Latest, And that's from the Daily Telegraph. And they were saying, because I was saying that there are some criticisms that the people that are going back from the US and these other countries who are intelligence assets going back to the US, some people are back to Russia. Some people are saying the people they've received are actually less valuable, that the US hasn't done a good deal here. But Ukrainian leaders were like, no, this is good for the US. This is a better deal. The people, if you look at the level of people that have gone back to Russia, they are low-level intelligence assets. One of them was fairly okay, but the rest of them are quite low-level. And people like Karamurza and others that the US are getting, those are big hauls. And so actually, contrary to what some people are saying, you can argue that this is a real haul for the US. But yeah, just some great footage coming out here. So first of all, Kamala Harris, of course, these then provide great moments of PR. So you've got, is that Paul? No, it's not Paul Whelan. That is, no, that might be Paul Whelan actually, who is a US veteran who has been there and, giving, it's just wonderful human contact with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I do believe Joe Biden gave him his lapel pin as well as a gift. So again, really strong moments for the Democrats here that will feed well with those. Again, everything we talk about should be seen through the lens of how does this affect people in the middle. Not worried about those people over there who are always going to slag this off. Not worried about people over there who are always going to be supportive of this. How does this play with people in the centre, with independents and so on and so forth? And of course, these kinds of, this footage is incredibly beneficial for the Biden and Harris administration as it is, and for the Harris campaign as it will be. Now, the question has been, why has this happened now? And no one quite knows. There are loads of, not conspiracy theories, loads of kind of different theories about whether this was good for Russia to do now, bad for Russia to do now, good for the Biden administration, bad for the... But yeah, what has happened is that this is taking place before November, so before the elections. And this, you would think, benefits the Democrats and benefits Harris. So why would Russia agree to that now? Lots of questions around the timing of this that I think are fascinating. Interestingly, though, Trump didn't say a word yesterday expressing happiness for the hostages that were freed from Russia. Not one. Trump doesn't care about America. He doesn't care about Americans. He roots for bad things to happen to Americans so he can exploit it. Trump only cares about Trump. I fully agree with that sentiment. I think that is spot on. And let me know if you disagree with that, because I think that tells you everything you need to know about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is narcissistic. He's a sociopath, I would argue, narcissistic, and he is transactional. And all things are seen through the lens of, is this for the benefit of me or not? Not for the US, but for me. And if I'm president of the US, then things that are to the benefit of the US are only secondary to the benefit they are to me. So that's how Trump sees things, and that you get Americans being released and prisoners being released from Russian jails for the benefit of the US is bad, because it's happened under the other guy's tenure, and therefore he cannot celebrate that. He can't celebrate things that are good for the US if it is not him that's responsible. And I think that's a real issue. Now, another interesting controversy that's turned up. Kyle Rittenhouse, if you remember the Black Lives Matter riots, and Kyle Rittenhouse, young at the time, I think he was 17, went around with a gun, shot some people, and then got away with it in court, I believe. So Conservative campaigner Kyle Rittenhouse says he will not vote for Donald Trump in November's US election because he thinks the US president is bad at protecting gun rights. So he's like, this isn't because he's gone over to the other side and like, I've reformed after getting into trouble with the law. He's gone deep in, right? He is right in that worldview. And he's like, right, Second Amendment, so right to bear arms. Anyone who's not like 100% behind allowing any American to have guns no matter what is not going to get my vote. And that's basically what he said here. In an online post early on Friday, Mr. Rittenhouse, now an outreach director for the group Texas Gun Rights, said that unfortunately Donald Trump has bad advisors, making him bad on the Second Amendment, which protects gun ownership in the US. If you cannot be completely uncompromisable on the Second Amendment, I will not vote for you. We need champions for the Second Amendment, or our rights will be eaten away and eroded each day. I support my decision and I have no takebacks. Now, that's interesting. Some people are just sitting back and eating popcorn watching this. So Agent Self says, Dear MAGA and Carl Rittenhouse, I hate messy breakups. I'm sorry to see you go through this. Even Trump is upset. So Donald Trump has said to this, sad to see Carl Rittenhouse, who I supported after he murdered more people than me, literally. Wow. Okay, so Trump, rather than try and work this out, has gone, he's actually murdered. So the guy got off from shooting these people, not seen as murder. He's not gone down for it. And now Trump's saying, he's literally murdered more people than me, has gone woke and didn't vote for me. He's not gone woke whatsoever. If it were up to me, he'd be in jail. Ungrateful. This country needs loyalty, not betrayal. That's very key. So loyalty is the most important thing for Trump. He needs that loyalty. Make America great again. Just incredible. And then you've now got people reacting to Carl Rittenhouse. Someone saying, oh, well, Carl, I regret to inform you that I will no longer be one of your guests on September the 12th at the TXGR, Texas Gun Rights event. I reckon you can write in someone else. This was not the way, bud. And Adam Kinzinger going, lol. Ron Filipkowski saying, Rittenhouse failed to understand how cults work. He's finding out now. In other words, you go against the flow of the river here, you are going to feel it. You're going to be washed away. And there'll be a lot of kickback on Rittenhouse here. From Trump's fervent supporters. Anyway, moving on to Vice President. Again, we do some more JD Vance stuff. So JD Vance has doubled down on calling Americans without children sociopathic.
I'm happy to defend what I said because what I said is true. The Democrats have become anti-family. I think it's a huge mistake for our country to go to that direction. And that's
so his claims about childless cat ladies and sociopaths. He said, I know I'm cool with that. I'm doubling down on that. I defend that because it's true. And of course, you have got these people saying things that are going to alienate people that you need to vote for you. He needs those people, those childless cat ladies, he needs their vote. And you're not going to get it like that. And doubling down and not showing any sort of contrition is an issue. Now, he said something else in an interview that came out recently that is, I said... Right, yesterday or the day before, I gave you quite a revealing anecdote about my parents who had some black people moved in down that road. And my parents are of an era, right, where they're kind of, I guess, as a leftover from that era, they aren't institutionally racist, but they have elements of that through the institutional racism of their era. If you see what I mean. So that kind of structural racism throughout the country during the time that my parents, were born and brought up, and then, my dad was in the Navy, my mum was in the Navy as well, actually, blah, 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 blah. And they say things where I'm like, I'm not cool with that. Yeah, I'm definitely not cool with that. And they say things that they think are just normal stuff where I'm analysing language all the time. So I said to you the other day that this black couple moved into their street and they said, that they're really nice actually, and it's the use of the word actually that made me go, so you weren't expecting them to be nice, but actually they are, like that goes against your expectations. And JD Vance has said something almost the same with regards to his own wife. So his own wife is Indian, and he was having to defend that because lots of people have been attacking him. He says, I get lots of white supremacists giving me hassle. He says, he said that the phrase was, or the sentence was, my wife is Indian. No, my wife is not white, but I love her. And it's the use of the word but. Just the use of the word actually just does so much heavy lifting. It should be my wife is Indian and I love her. Or my wife is Indian, semicolon, I love her. I love her. She's Indian, but I love her. Like normally I wouldn't love someone who's Indian, but I do love this one. So, crazy world we live in. Just when people accidentally let out, you could say, yeah, it was just a verbal slip or something. It could well have been. But I just think that our language is so reflective of, where we're at. Anyway. I digress. Right, as I can't go through this now, I'm going to run out of time. There is a very big article here in Newstracks, chart and overview of key links for JD Vance with mentor Peter Thiel, PayPal, and super Republican donor and supporter, the little-known Rockbridge Network, and the 2016 Kingmaker Rebecca Mercer. So the Mercer family, or the Mercer family, are massive, massive donors to the Republicans. So here's a chart of the connections of people like Rebecca Mercer, 1789 Capital, and you've got Blake Masters, Tucker Carlson, you've got Rockbridge Network, you've got JD Vance, Rebecca Mercer, Peter Thiel, Tucker Carlson, David Sachs, Leonard Leo, another massive funder. Some of these attendees, some of these are speakers, some of these are donors and co-founders. You've got this chap, Chris Buskirk. There, you got Rumble. Some people say, why don't you, if you have problems with YouTube, why don't you go for Rumble? Because it's owned by Peter Thiel, JD Vance is an investor, and the director is David Sachs, and I hate all of those people, so I ain't going on Rumble. And the connection between these people, Blake Masters, again, is connected over there, because Blake Masters and JD Vance are proteges of Peter Thiel. So you've got Parler, which is another right-wing social media site where JD Vance is an advisor to Rebecca Mercer, who's an investor there. Heritage Foundation, Rebecca Mercer is a director and trustee, and JD Vance is affiliated. And then, so on and so forth. All these other ones. 2017 informal political coalition between Bannon, Mercer, and Buskirk. It's so incestuous. All these groups working together, and this goes through. It calls them tech. The term tech bros. These are tech broligarchs, like oligarchs. So these are like, it's a cartel of tech giants who seem to be having an awful lot of political sway, and they donate an awful lot of money. I will just read this bit. As Peter Thiel built his fortune, he developed a network of proteges, many who are aligned with the far-right views. Two of these proteges, JD Vance and Blake Masters, both coincidentally and separately met Thiel while they were at law school. Vance was a student at Yale School when he attended a speech by Thiel, another budding lawyer to be. Blake Masters met Thiel when he took a class with him at Stanford called Sovereignty, Technology and Globalization. JD Vance and Blake Masters both went on to work at firms founded by Thiel, and then ahead of the 2022 midterms, Thiel spent millions of dollars to try to get those two proteges to win seats in the US Senate. Thiel donated $15 million to PACs supporting Vance, who ran for Senate in Ohio in 2022 and won. Now, although Vance won, he won on an advantage that was not nearly as much as he should have had. He should have won with a much greater winning margin, when you look at other Republican wins in Ohio, than he did. And so he was not really a very good choice, which then leads you to understand he's not a very good choice for vice president. But he was basically enabled to win by Peter Thiel. And Thiel was one of the people who has selected him for vice president, along with Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk. These are the people that wanted JD Vance to be vice president, and it's turned out to be a really bad choice. Thiel donated $15 million to that. Thiel also donated $13.5 million to PAC supporting Blake Masters for Senate in Arizona. Masters lost to Mark Kelly, who is now being considered for vice president for Kamala Harris. Masters is now running for Congress and was recently endorsed by Trump. And anyway, loads of all these connections. You got Koch brothers, all these others. Project 2025, Heritage Foundation. And it's all so problematic. Go and look at that. I'll try and remember to link it at the bottom. And kind of in that context, we've got now Elon Musk getting into trouble. Elon Musk and his tech bros are basically doing a Cambridge Analytica 2.0. Now, this is very controversial and not good, and I despise Elon Musk anyway. This is just another reason why I do. How an Elon Musk PAC is the funding organization for Trump in this case is using voter data to help Trump beat Harris in 2024 election. Now, what is happening here is sounds illegal to me, as Jakub Janowski, who's actually, I've seen him defend Musk before, says, in my opinion, this should result in everyone involved being criminally prosecuted and getting a jail sentence. Jennifer Schulze says this is a very big deal, a Musk election interference effort that tricks people in swing states into thinking they've registered to vote. So the article here says the website says it will help. So this is a website set up by Elon Musk, says it will help the viewer register to vote. But once a user clicks register to vote, the experience he or she will have can be very different depending on where they live. If the user lives in a state that is not considered competitive in the presidential election, like California or Wyoming, for example, they'll be prompted to enter their email address and zip code and then directed quickly to a voter registration page for their state, or back to the original sign-up section. But for users who enter a zip code that indicates they live in a battleground state like Pennsylvania or Georgia, the process is very different. Rather than be directed to their state's voter registration page, they are instead directed to a highly detailed personal information form prompted to enter their address, cell phone number, and age. If they agree to submit all that, the system still does not steer them to a voter registration page. Instead, it shows them a thank you page. So that person who wanted help registering to vote, in the end, they got no help at all registering, but they did hand over priceless personal data to a political operation. So in other words, they've set up this website to supposedly try and get people to vote. But what they want is information of information of voters in swing states, but they won't get to actually register in those swing states. It's incredibly dubious. And that should be checked out. Right, going on to just a couple of polls that have come out today. This is from RNG. That's a C-rated poll, so not a great poll. Harris up 5, 47 to 42. Kennedy on 6. That's a three-way poll. And that's obviously exceptionally good for Harris, now well in the lead of Trump, but take that with a pinch of salt. And then you've got, is this Polymarket? I don't know how good Polymarket is. Harris 57 in Pennsylvania, up 14 on Trump at 43. And in Michigan, Harris 54, up 8 on Trump at 46. So again, these polls are really going in favor of Harris at the moment. The betting odds are also closing up too, which is an important one to look out for. Anyway, that's enough from me. Hopefully that's of use to you, just surveying some of the opinions and ideas. I know it's another long one, but they always are, because it's me and I just talk too much. Take care, guys, and speak to you soon.